Hey YouTube, hey subscribers, thanks for tuning in. Well guys, the time has come. I wasn't going to address anything regarding the election, regarding our new president. I wasn't going to address anything political on this channel, but after everything that's taken place yesterday, the things that I've witnessed, the things that have been going on for the next couple of months, I actually feel like it would be really irresponsible of me not to say something, to offer some type of narrative regarding what's going on. And so this is what this video is going to be about. I have no doubt that I will upset and probably lose a few subscribers. And to that I say, thank you so much for coming this far on the journey with me. I appreciate your support, I appreciate your views, and I really hope that you'll take the time to listen to this video in its entirety before you write me off completely. But if you decide to, that is your choice. I understand. I get that politics are extremely divisive, and they cause people to fall out and separate. So if you no longer wish to view the channel, I understand. But I really do hope that you give this video an objective chance to hear me out and potentially hear out why everyone is so concerned. So as far as I go, I'm a little bit kind of in the middle politically. I don't lean heavily to the left or to the right. I find different positions in each camp appealing and logical, and then I also find different positions in each camp unappealing and not logical. So I'm kind of in the middle, and I took a quiz a while back, and it turns out that I'm something they've classified as a young outsider. So I thought that was interesting. So anyway, I say all that to say that I'm not hard right, I'm not hard left. I actually like to think of myself as a relatively reasonable person, someone who can really weigh things and choose a good course. But I have to speak out on this because this is the first presidential election where there's been such, as far as I know, where there's been such a backlash for many different reasons. If you watched any of the coverage yesterday of the marches and the protests, one thing that should stand out to you is how very blended and diverse the crowds are in age, gender, race, religion. It's not all one group or one primary homogenous group protesting what has taken place. It's a massive backlash of the entire planet. So for that reason, I am going to go ahead and address this. I apologize in advance if this is upsetting to some of you, but I really hope you'll take the time to hear it out and listen. And this is actually going to be the first video I've ever done where I've included somewhat of a presentation aspect. So for those of you who are used to just listening, there will be 2 slides, but they have a lot of info on them. So this is that important that I actually took the time to put together a slideshow. So with no further ado, you guys, let's go ahead and address our new president, Donald Trump. So here's the angle that I'm going to take with this. I'm not going to go after policy because we could debate policy all day. So I'm not going to go after policy. What I'm going to touch on in this video are what I'm calling the characteristics of concern, the things that make this particular individual so troubling to the masses, not just a couple of people, but to the masses. So we're going to get into a few of the things that our president has displayed that is truly concerning, and it is one of the many reasons, or some of the many reasons, people are so upset and so worried. So for those of you who are Trump supporters, if you can just suspend for a few minutes your desire to argue with me and hear me out, my hope is that you might develop an understanding of where we're coming from, okay? Without all the insults and anger and vitriol that's going back and forth, Let's hear each other out in a very logical and clear way, okay? So let's start with this first characteristic of concern, which is that Mr. Trump is very easily inflamed. So when someone has such a great responsibility as leading the free world, you have to be the most stoic person on planet Earth. Criticism, critiques, lies, truths, all kinds of things are going to fly at you, and you can't jump on every single one, because then what that shows is that this person is very easy to get a rise out of. This person will probably be very easy to start a war with. All you have to do is insult him. And to add insult to injury, all you have to do is put that insult in 120 characters or less in a tweet, and you could potentially set off World War III. That's not good. We need someone who's relatively inflammable, who you can belittle, curse out, insult, and they're not going to respond because they recognize that that is an unwise use of their time. So we don't need someone who's so easily inflamed. We don't need someone whose attention is so easy to get. It should be very hard to get the president's attention unless it's something extremely important. All right? But so far, Mr. Trump has displayed very, very easy inflammation. I imagine if this video ever reaches him in some way, he'll flame out at me. And who am I? I'm nobody. But you'll take the time from the highest seat in the world to flame back at me. That makes no sense. I shouldn't, none of us, average citizens, should have anything enough to say to cause the leader of the free world to respond. Okay? Let's move on to the second characteristic that's deeply concerning. Our president is morbidly competitive. So, competition is a way of life. It's a natural thing. We all compete, in one way or the other for different things. Morbidly competitive is when the leader of the free world takes the time to discuss the size of a crowd or to inform the world that his hands aren't small and something else isn't either. I just don't see how that's relevant to the pressing issues that our society is facing. So competitive that every area that he's challenged in, he has to fight back. He has to swing back. He has to prove that he's the biggest man. And if winning the presidency and getting inaugurated isn't proof enough, you would think that that would be enough for someone's ego. Like, okay, not only am I a billionaire with property all over the world, but now I'm also the leader of that same world. I think I'm good now. I think I don't have to compete with other people because I've already kind of won in many ways. You have money. You have a beautiful wife. Now you're the leader of the free world. Why are you swinging back in regard to crowd size, the size of your hands, things of that nature? Who cares? Who cares if 2 people showed up to your inauguration? You still got elected. So it shouldn't be enough to warrant being addressed. And that's what's so interesting about this person is that no level of success is satisfactory. He still feels so small on the inside that he has to compete with everybody, even though you've already won in so many ways. So he's morbidly competitive, and I use the word morbidly because when you're morbidly competitive, you basically will fight to the death. You'll keep fighting until somebody dies because you have to win at all costs. You're morbidly competitive. So on a similar thread, the third characteristic of concern is that he engages in absolutely every single battle that comes his way. Wise leaders know that every battle is an expenditure of resources. So you can't fight every battle because it is a drain on your resources. You have to conserve that energy for those battles that truly matter, where you really have to throw everything you have at them. or else you're just wasting resources at every turn, and your enemy loves it because they know it doesn't take much to get you to waste resources. Sometimes those resources are just time, effort, and energy. The time, effort, and energy you take to compose a tweet is still a resource, especially from the leader of the free world. If the leader of the free world gives you 60 seconds of their time, that is a valuable 60-second time slot. So the fact that he takes the time to engage every battle that comes his way, even down to like beauty queens. Really? Former beauty queens? You have time in your schedule to insult former beauty queens. It makes no sense. So what troubles me as a citizen is that my leader has the time on his hands and the interest in engaging in every battle. That's troublesome. It's very dangerous. Moving on to the fourth characteristic of concern, Mr. Trump doesn't listen to anyone. Now, a lot of leaders, people who've been successful in the world will tell you that they ultimately listen to themselves. They let their conscience be their guide. They let their intuition be their guide. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I actually, to a very large degree, do believe that you have to trust your gut. You have to trust yourself on many different things. However, in a role like the President of the United States, there are just some things you just don't know about. There are things you've never been exposed to, processes, information, systems, people, nuances. There's a lot of things to know. So if you walk into that thinking you don't need to know any of this stuff, you're not interested in the history, you're not interested in the current state, you're not interested in any of that because you believe you're a very smart person. That is so dangerous. That's like a surgeon going to 1 year of medical school and then coming out going, I got it. Yeah. Scalpel, scrub up. The nurses will stitch him up. You move some stuff around, I'll Google it. I'll do a heart surgery. I'll just kind of Google how to do heart surgery, and I'll wing it, because I'm a smart person. That is so dangerous. Would you let a surgeon like that operate on you? What about an airline pilot? What about an airline pilot who dropped out of school but somehow managed to get the job and was like, yeah, I went to flight school, but, flight school is for wusses. I got it. I can fly this thing. It's a plane. People fly them every day. I got it. There's a lot of little stuff you need to know about flying a plane. There's a lot of little stuff you need to know about heart surgery and things of that nature. And that's what makes it so troubling that he doesn't listen to anyone. I do believe that there are a lot of people out there who are super intelligent and can pick up on things very quickly. But certain jobs and certain roles require you to understand them in order to do them effectively. I'm not saying Mr. Trump has to take the advice of everyone, but it would serve him well to open his mind and open his heart and ears to the counsel of those who've been there for a while. Now, those who are staunch Trump supporters strongly believe that our government is corrupted and that, pretty much everything they would tell you is a lie because they've got all these agendas and all that good stuff. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm probably one of the biggest conspiracy theorists out there, but I also have a strong dose of reality riding with those conspiracy theories. So sometimes when I watch and listen to some of the stuff, it just cracks me up. It tickles me because I'm like, these people are really crazy. They are crazy. They are actually crazy. And then other conspiracy theories, I'm like, that kind of rings a little bit true. But I don't take that as gospel. And we'll get there. I'm getting ahead of myself a little bit. My point is, I understand that our government is not crispy clean. I understand that they've done a lot of dirty stuff over the years. They've engaged in a lot of dirty things over the years. However, everything isn't a conspiracy. Everything isn't dirty. Everything is not a lie. Some things are actually true. And we need a discerning leader who will hear it all out and be able to piece together what is true and what is not true in order to make decisions. All right? Let's move on to number 5, and I'll touch on conspiracy in a few more bullets. He's very insulting to his predecessors. And again, I get that everyone in government is not clean and doesn't have clean hands. I totally got that. However, in this particular arena, you have to show respect to get respect. You have to show respect to veterans who've given the ultimate sacrifice for their country. And you have to show respect to their parents. You have to show respect to civil rights leaders who fought hard against people just like you in the past. You know, you have to show respect to prisoners of war who were captured. I'm not sure if he was tortured or not, but at minimum captured. I imagine they weren't very friendly. You have to show respect. Even if you don't believe in their policies or their positions, you have to show respect. You have to show humility in order to build those relationships. And maybe if you think they are going down the wrong course, because you've shown respect and because you've shown humility, they might be more apt to listen to you if you think your way is the correct way. But just that flat-out insult to everyone who's come before, and everyone who's given so much, it's troubling. And it's also troubling because he doesn't listen to anyone. So the chances of him learning the backstory or the back history or cultural norms of other countries, I could foresee him deeply insulting the leaders of other countries, mainly because A, he doesn't want to learn their customs and norms, and B, he just thinks they're beneath him. So who cares? You know, if you've been a leader for 20 or 30 years in some foreign country, I'm the president now and you're going to listen to me. And I just don't see that going very well for anybody. These men in these high positions of power, many of them are engaged in adult-level pissing contests, but we'll get there. Let's move on to number 6. I touched on this in number 4, but he seems to believe and subscribe to hysterical conspiracy theory type news. Now again, I research a lot of different things. I have a very open mind. I've entertained a lot of different theories, okay? So I am not one of these people who is super naive and like, our government is the greatest thing ever, and they would never plan something that wouldn't be to our best interest. I am not that naive. I'm not. Trust me, I know. I should launch a whole nother channel just on my conspiracy theories, but I won't. There's other people out there already doing it and doing it way better and putting out really great content. And it's just not a passion. It's more like a passive hobby. But, you know, when you're in a position of such high power, you have to be able to differentiate between truth and fiction. You have to be able to tell when someone is just making stuff up. You have to be able to tell, or at least employ someone who can go do some solid fact-checking for you. You have to be able to differentiate between truth and reality. But if one thing this president has done more than anything else, it's distort reality. I've never seen anything like it. That's why I was tongue-tied and locked up a couple months ago, and then I was like, well, I just won't cover the election at all, because I didn't know what to say, because I've never seen such distortion of reality at such a high level. Gaslighting, public gaslighting at such a high level, dismissal of concerns, it's just profound. Like, it's just, I think we're all still in shock. I think we're still starting to come out of shock a little bit, but it's so much, and it's so characteristic of narcissism, my goodness. But there's so much going on that it is almost impossible to figure out where to start. So this video is a start. Although I don't intend on taking this channel political, this is a start at least to defrosting our minds, figuring out what's going on, putting some language to it, and making it so where we can talk about it. Because if we can't talk about it, that's where all the power comes from. That we're locked up, we're tongue-tied, we're speechless, we don't know what to say, and they just keep right on rolling while we're over here frozen. So today we're getting unfrozen. But anyway, he believes in this hysterical conspiracy theory news. And when you listen to it, if you take the time to just go explore and hear out some of the theories, they are insane. Now, some of them, when you hear them out, you're like, yeah, that sounds about right. Others, you just sit back and you just chuckle to yourself like these people have lost it, right? It's that ability to discern between the two that he doesn't seem to have, and he seems to lean more on the hysterical, just completely fantastical theories out there and makes decisions off of them. That's what's so troubling. Okay? Let's move on to number 7, probably one of the most prominent. I could do a whole video on this all by itself, but I won't. It's just the flat out, just blatant misogyny. Now, any Trump supporter still listening up until this point will argue that that video was made a long time ago. What are some of the justifications I've seen? The video was made a long time ago before he was running for president. This is locker room talk. The girls let him grab their pussy. So, they kind of had it coming. What else did I hear? Oh, this was one of the best justifications I heard. I would rather know that my president is a red-blooded American male than like a pushover or punk or something like that. But I don't remember the back half. I remember the front half of that justification. And they were just like, I'd rather know that my president is a red-blooded American male. Oh, okay. Like, I just don't see how these people can look in the faces of their daughters and justify voting for a man who said, when you're famous, they'll let you do anything. Grab them by the pussy. Almost like grab them by the ponytail, grab them by the arm. Like, it's vulgar. It's completely vulgar. And so what do you tell your daughter? How do you teach that to your 7 or 8-year-old daughter? Sweetie, when you get older, you might find yourself around a lot of rich men. Don't let them grab you by the pussy. Make sure you don't ever let them grab you by the pussy. Like, how do you even explain that to your daughter? Oh, that's how boys talk. That's what rich men do. And those women, they're whores for letting him grab them by the pussy. I'm sure they didn't see it coming. I'm sure he didn't ask, hey, ma'am, may I grab you by the pussy? Oh, sure, go right ahead, Donald. Like, I'm sure it didn't go down that way. Crass, crude, vulgar, and the justifications that I've heard, the cognitive dissonance that has been displayed on a national level, it is insane. Like, I really feel like we're living in the Twilight Zone. I feel like some black hole slurped us up right around 2001. And we've just been traveling through this black hole ever since. And hopefully we're getting ready to come out on the other end, but I don't know, y'all. But just the blatant misogyny, talking about women's weight, in regard to one of his rape accusers, I think he said, look at her. In other words, who would rape that? Like, she's not even rapeable. You know what I mean? So how do you teach that to your young daughter? Sweetie, make sure you stay rapeable all throughout your life. Make sure you keep your tits high, keep your waist small, stay in shape, look cute, because you want to make sure you're rapeable for all the rich men in the world. Like, it's just disgusting. I could do a whole video on it, but I won't. I'm going to move on. Ego, machismo, and the national pissing contest. So here's my theory on this. I honestly don't believe Mr. Trump ever intended on winning the presidency. I really don't. I don't think that was in his game plan. This is an older man. He probably was dead set on retirement, and I think all he really wanted to do was show the world that if I wanted the presidency, I could get it. If I wanted your job, Mr. Obama, Mr. Bush, I could get it. I'm on the same level as you. You think you're special, but you're not. I could come in and get the presidency too. I'm good like that. And he did. And I think for him, like, if you remember that video where he met with the president for the first time and they were sitting there and talking, they both looked sick. Obama looked sick and Trump looked sick. We all know why Obama looked sick, because he probably couldn't believe what was happening. Like, really? Really? Really, guys? We're going to go, really? Okay. Trump looked sick because he never meant to actually win the presidency. This was a pissing contest, guys. It was a pissing contest. It was about ego. It was about machismo, okay? It was about proving who had the biggest hand. It was about proving I could win the presidency if I wanted to. If I ever decided to go for that, I could get it. And he went for it and he got it. And I honestly believe he's regretting every second of it. The scrutiny, he doesn't have the temperament for it. The scrutiny, the criticism, the backlash, the protests that are happening, telling you we don't like what has taken place here. This is not okay. It's not even about Republican versus Democrat anymore. It has moved beyond that, which I never thought we would see. It's moved beyond that. There's tons of Republicans who are against this man for the reasons that I'm listing and more. So, you know, it says a lot. It says a lot, okay? But, yeah, it was just a national pissing contest that he happened to win, and now he's got all of these new worries, new concerns, whereas before, all he had to worry about was tending to his business and buying Melania things. That's all he had to worry about. Now you have to worry about the literal weight of the world on your shoulders. I don't think he ever thought it would go this far. I think he's shocked at the level of support no matter what comes out about him. I bet you he released those tapes to Inside Edition or whoever released them. I think it was Inside Edition. I guarantee you he released those tapes because he didn't want to do this, y'all. I'm telling you, I just know this in my spirit. He did not want to do this. And so, but you did, and now it's yours. And so he probably really hoped that recount would come out in Hillary's favor so he could get out of this, but you're in it now. So, you know, hey, that's what happens when you enter into pissing contests, you know, driven by ego and machismo. Let's address something else. So, this cabinet that he's electing with these people, I don't need to know that much about their backgrounds to know that this cabinet is not reflective of the country that we live in or its citizens. Now, I'm not saying he has to go out of his way to hire the United Nations and make sure every race, every creed, every orientation, every gender is represented. That would be very difficult, impossible probably, and probably in many ways unfair to those who do have the qualifications, who do have the experience. Just picking someone else just because, you know, I want to make sure that everyone's represented. However, I don't think he really did a good job even trying to find someone else. Like, I don't think he even made an attempt. It was like, okay, well, I'm here. Let me just hire everyone who I either know, have done business with, or is kind of familiar to me. I don't think he did any research. I don't think he even tried to find people who were reflective of the entire country. And here's why that's so disturbing. Because I was in an argument with somebody. I'm always in arguments on comment boards, y'all. With somebody the other day, and they were like, well, this is America, so the cabinet is going to look American. And I said, if America was an all-white country, you would absolutely be correct. Kind of like China's cabinet, probably everyone in their cabinets looks Chinese or is Chinese. Probably the same thing in Korea, probably the same thing in Japan, and all these other nations that aren't American nations, sure, because they're more homogenous, meaning the bulk of everyone there is the same. America is not homogenous. Now, we do have majority classes and minority classes, but they're still massive populations of people. So your cabinet, if nothing else, should be proportionally reflective of the country. And it's not. It's a bunch of rich, old, white guys and a couple of girls sprinkled in for good measure. Okay? And that's a problem because that's not the entire country, number one. But number two, you're going to miss out on the diversity of thought. So let me give you an example. I had a cat for 18 years. So from the time I was like 12 or 13 to like 31. So someone do the math for me. I'm not doing my math real fast. But basically, since I was a middle schooler to the age I was 31 years old, right? And as he was nearing the end of his life, I took him to the vet, and, the vet, at the time, he was like 16, and the vet was like such a cold person. I never took him back, but he was like, well, purebred cats don't live very long because they don't have the genetic diversity. And on a sidebar, I'm like, 16 years isn't long, screw you. But anyway, I never forgot that comment, because what he was basically trying to say in his very cold doctor way was animals that don't have the benefit of a diverse gene pool tend to not live very long. Versus, like, you take an alley cat, when well cared for, can live 22, 23 years because they are mixed up with a little bit of everything. Versus your purebreds tend not to live as long because they're not as genetically diverse. Okay? And he passed at 18, so there, take that, doc. But the same rule applies to any corporation, any business, anything. When you lack the diversity of thought, you don't have all your bases covered. You don't have eyes on every corner of the world. You don't have representation. You don't have a funnel to funnel back to you what's important to this group, what's important to that group. I guess that's what lobbyists are for, but it's not the same as having people in your cabinet who have that diverse perspective of thought. So if everyone is pretty much the same, then you're going to have pretty much the same values, pretty much the same opinions, and the whole world is going to, or the whole country is going to start to reflect the opinions of less than 20 people. That's crazy. That's insanity. So, it's just like a massive rollback. Like, we're just going to roll this thing back decades and decades. I really personally believe it's these people's last hurrah. Like, you know what? I know I probably don't have 30 years left on this planet, so damn it, by God, I'm going to convert this country back to the way that I remember it before I die. I really think that's kind of one of the driving thoughts and principles, and they may be successful, but the truth of the matter is they won't be successful for much longer. Yes, they have children that hold their values and their ideals, but with each passing year and with each passing generation, we are doing away with those mindsets. We are doing away with that hateful positioning. It may take some time, but we're gradually phasing it out. Even though it may seem like it's ramping up and getting stronger right now, I promise you the resistance to all of that is stronger than their hatred. Love is stronger than hate. Always has been, always will be. Let's move on. The 10th characteristic of concern is his total lack of empathy for others. What bothers me so much about what I've seen is that he never, or he rarely, takes the time to say, listen guys, I know you're upset with me because you think blank. I promise you blank, or I'm going to take into consideration blank. Now, I personally did not watch his inauguration speech. I just couldn't. So he may have done that in his speech. From what I heard, here and there, he said something like, this is our country, this is for all of us, or something like that, which is a really weak brushstroke over everything that happened leading up to this. But he displays no empathy for his fellow man. He doesn't care. He doesn't show any concern or compassion. Can you really picture him doing flyovers of natural disaster areas? Can you really picture him on the ground like in Hurricane Katrina, in the aftermath of all that? I mean, even Bush looks more appropriate there. Can you really picture this man in the midst of the people, shaking hands, giving hugs, telling them he's sorry for what happened to them? Can you picture him in a polo or a roll-up sleeve shirt, button down, and some khakis on the ground, helping, meeting, serving? Can you picture him serving? Can you? Because I can't. I don't see it. I don't think the man has a compassionate, empathetic bone in his body, and that's probably what's driving all of these other characteristics. He doesn't have that human genome that makes him relatable, personable, likable, to have basically the whole entire world against you minus a few supporters in the grand scheme should tell you something. It really should. A lot of people didn't like Barack Obama, but it did not spark the backlash that we've seen with President Trump. It just didn't. If there were protests, they were small. If there were marches, they were insignificant. Because in their heart, they knew deep down inside, this man has relatively good character, all things being considered. He presents well, he's got class, he tried his best to include everybody, and not leave anyone out. Very compassionate and warm and genuine on the ground with the people. They knew that in their heart. So, they typically attacked his policy, and then when they ran out of policy things to attack, they started to attack his wife and her looks. I mean, how much more childish could you get, right? So, these are just a few of the characteristics of concern that I've boiled down into a short list that's very digestible. So I wanted to present the contrast of this in the event this ever reaches President Trump. If this list upsets you, allow me to offer some alternatives to leadership that would really help you with your office, with your position in office and your time in office, if you want to make this go away. So here are some of the traits of great leaders and great leadership. Number one, great leaders are not easily moved by things. Again, they're relatively inflappable. They recognize that they're going to be dealing with dozens of issues every single day, and they don't allow themselves to get caught up, wrapped up, tied up, and tangled up in every little issue that comes their way and every comment that someone makes to them. They don't take the time out of their day to respond. They're not easily moved. They're very solid, steady, and steadfast. They're very stoic people. They maintain a healthy level of competition. Now again, we're all competitive to some degree. Some industries are more competitive than others. For some industries, you have to win to make money, and fair enough. But they don't allow that need to win or that desire to win to override what's healthy. They don't take it to a morbid level. They recognize that in life, there are going to be winners and losers. Sometimes you're the winner and sometimes you're the loser. But they don't allow that to drive themselves, their company, their country into the ground over a sick need and sick obsession to win. Similarly, they choose their battles wisely. Again, every battle is an expenditure of resources. Every resource is limited. So when you have a limited amount of resources, you have to choose which battles you're going to apply those resources to. They don't get tangled up in things like the size of their hands. Great leaders wouldn't even have time to even think about what you think about the size of their hands. They have other more pressing issues to deal with. Great leaders are also able to be coached. Being coachable is so important because we're not perfect. Nobody has it 100% correct. Some people are much better at things than others, but even those who are experts could still use some coaching from time to time. Why? Because the more time you spend with yourself and your thoughts, the more you're going to think those thoughts are correct. You need conflicting viewpoints every now and then to challenge your assumptions, challenge your thoughts, challenge your belief system, and redesign it if necessary. The reason that there are coaches in sports is because the players can't see everything that's going on because they're right there on the field. Their field of vision and view and understanding of all the dynamics are very skewed because they're eye level and ground level, and they can't see the whole field at once. The coach can, though, and the coach can offer those insights that the player can't see because they're too deeply involved in it. Great leaders are able to be coached. Sometimes you have to be coached out of the weeds. You have to be told those difficult things so you can improve and get better. That's the whole aim and focus of coaching, is to improve and get better. So great leaders are able to receive that coaching, and their egos aren't threatened as a result. Great leaders also respect those who came before them. Now, this doesn't mean that they subscribe to all of their viewpoints and ideals. It doesn't mean that they suddenly change who they are and pay all this homage to these people who came before them. All this means is that I respect the fact that you've traveled this path. You may or may not have fought a long, hard fight, and I respect you just for who you are and for hanging in there, having work ethic, having integrity, all of those things. I respect you for that. I may not agree with you, but I respect you. I'll shake your hand. Okay? Great leaders are logical and rational. So on the other list, we were talking about how Mr. Trump gets swept up into hysterical conspiracy theories, and how I mentioned that, some conspiracy theories hold some weight. They do. And others are so ridiculous that you just have to sit back and laugh. It's a form of entertainment. But for Mr. Trump, the entertainment has become truth and reality, and that's problematic. Not so much that he's willing to listen to an alternative viewpoint, but the fact that he listens to it without questioning it. He listens to it without researching it, without seeing it for his own eyes. He listens to people who are just random YouTubers who put up a YouTube video. That's problematic, because then all it takes is for the one or two people he does trust to come in and tell him something, and he'll just believe it. He'll take it at face value, without doing any research. He's a smart person, so he doesn't think he has to do any critical thinking, and that's problematic. Great leaders respect humanity. So in the other video, we talked about how Mr. Trump has displayed blatant misogyny. Great leaders respect human beings, period. They tend to respect animals too, but let's start with humans. They respect human beings. They respect the beingness of humanity. They may not like you, but they respect you. You can do that. It is actually possible to respect someone without liking them. It's extremely possible. But they just have respect for the human condition. And, part of that human condition is being a woman or being a man. So great leaders respect everyone. They don't necessarily like everyone, but they show respect and dignity to the human condition. Great leaders tend to check their egos at the door. They recognize that they have an ego. They are able to identify when their ego is rising up. They are able to identify when their egos are in the process of being bruised or have been bruised. And they're also able to recognize which decisions they're making are ego-driven and which ones are not ego-driven. And they make conscious, active choices and decisions to not be led and driven by their ego. Now, are they always successful? Not necessarily, because we're human beings and we're made up of the id, ego, and superego. So every now and then, your ego is going to rise up. It just is. It's what happens. But emotionally intelligent leaders have learned how to identify it, recognize it, and check it and control it. And it's very helpful, because when you make decisions out of ego, you almost always are going to make a bad decision. Almost always. And so they make sure that they don't do that. Number 9, traits of great leaders, they're very representative and inclusive. So similar to respecting humanity, they try to make sure that everyone at least feels included. If you're not represented, at least feel included. All right? And a lot of people, especially super hardcore Trump supporters, are very against diversity, and I find it so fascinating. I really think it's very interesting how anti-diversity they can be, and I think they think that, diversity means you're going to be living next to a black guy and a Muslim guy and a Mexican guy and a Chinese guy all on the same street, and you know what I mean? Their fear is that their way of life is going to be disturbed as a result of the diversity, which I could do a whole separate video on that, but I'm not going to. But The problem is, the irony is, regardless of whether or not you want to be diverse or be inclusive or representative, we already are. We are all trapped on the same planet. As far as I know, there's no escape vehicle to get off. Some of the conspiracy theories will say that there are, but as far as I'm informed, there's no way off of this freaking planet. We're already inclusive. We're already diverse. We're like a massive petri dish. So just because you have gates and walls and long distances to travel to get to your home, you're still on the same turf as everyone else you're trying to get away from. So it makes no sense to try to pretend like there's only one group of people on the planet when there's not. Okay? That's not saying you go and now you're an ambassador and you're going to go move into a super diverse neighborhood and just totally immerse yourself. Cultural immersion, in an effort to be diverse. No, you have your friends and family you grew up around who probably look a lot like you, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. The problem comes in when you purposely try to keep other people out of opportunities, out of just an opportunity at a nice, comfortable life, an opportunity at a reasonable life. You know what I mean? And let me just move on, because I'm going to get off on another tangent, and that's not what this video is about. Number 10, great leaders have compassion for humanity. So really, number 7, 9, and 10, respect, representative and inclusive, and compassion, or really empathy for humanity, all kind of go together. And number 10 really could say they just have empathy. They have compassion. They can look at another person and understand what they might be going through. They can use their imagination and actually put themselves in the position of someone else and say, that must have been hard for them. Or I understand how they reached that conclusion. And then helping make your decisions based on the empathy that comes from within. Right now, that march that happened yesterday was an attempt at installing empathy at the highest level. It's like, okay, we haven't been heard, you didn't hear us, so let us attempt to install empathy in a very public fashion, okay? People don't have to march on people who have empathy. You don't. It's not needed. You have to march when people openly display that they do not care about your situation. They don't care about your circumstance. They don't care about you. And then when they have the opportunity to design laws that would directly influence you, your friends, your family, and those laws totally lack empathy or compassion or understanding for the human condition. So, this is what we are aiming for. This last list is what we're trying to get away from. Some closing remarks for Mr. Trump, President Trump. Sir, I would just like to say that pride does come before a fall. And I know right now it appears that a fall is not possible because you've already beaten all the odds. You got nominated. You came down to the last two between you and the first potential female president of the United States. You beat her out. You got inaugurated in spite of everything that took place that was extremely questionable in the election process, and you still got put in. So you've officially won. Now is the time to take a step back, really examine what you want the next however many years to look like, because I don't believe you'll go the full 4 if you keep up with the traits and characteristics that I listed on the first slide. I don't believe you'll last, because the human was not designed to last long term under those types of circumstances. So if you really want to be effective, and if you really want to lead this country, you're going to have to consider some of the things that I placed on that second slide. You're going to have to humble yourself, and you're going to have to take into consideration everyone, not just those around you or who are like you. You're going to have to find a way to install your empathy chip in order to be an effective and successful president. I'm concerned about your success. Why? Because it's official now. You are our leader. And so you lead me, you lead my parents, you lead my family, you lead my friends, and every other loved one in between. You have our lives in your hands. And so, yes, I'm very concerned about your success. So I sincerely hope you do hear this, and hey, maybe you'll shout it out via tweet because you have the time to do that kind of stuff. But my hope is that one day you won't have the time to address bloggers like me, other bloggers, other tweeters. I really hope you'll be so concerned with things that are happening on a national and global level, you won't have time to engage in the small things in life, and you'll put all your focus and energy on the big things and leaving a legacy that looks nothing like the legacy you've already left as you've led up to this election. With that, I'm going to close this video, you guys. Welcome all comments, but I will not welcome abusive comments. Those will be deleted and you will be blocked. But you are more than welcome to comment on this video, disagree with me. Just keep it professional, keep it clean, keep it classy, keep it above the line, and we can talk. But other than that, you guys, thank you so much for tuning into this video. I appreciate the support. If you haven't already, check out my books on the Amazon Kindle store. I put a few more up there that I didn't advertise. I just wanted to see what they do without any advertising. You can search the author name, Permission to Exist. And with that, I appreciate you all so much. We will make it through this. We will be okay. We have permission to exist, and we have each other. So thank you all so much for listening. Have a good day. Bye-bye.